Hi everyone, this is Ronnie, and in Fruity Fridays last night we had a great session. If you want to join us on Friday nights with Fruity Fridays, Friday daytime for those in the US, you can go to fruitfest.co.uk/Fruity Friday and you can see the time and stuff like that. We had a great chat with a couple who've never been on before, and they were telling us about their experience with a raw vegan pregnancy. And Layla was the name of the woman, and she told us that it was basically a completely different experience. She didn't get sick during pregnancy. She didn't have some of the normal problems that women had. She didn't experience much pain or discomfort. The actual labor, it sounded like it was relatively easy and didn't feel pain. She also said her water didn't actually break, that the amniotic sac came out intact, which apparently doesn't really happen. And then she was kind of back and recovered very quickly. And that's so interesting because we can ask ourselves, why is childbirth such a difficult process for women usually, and why is it a life-threatening thing and something that can damage women and a very painful experience and things like that. And it reminded me of a passage from the Bible, and I couldn't quite find it, but I eventually found it. And in the Bible, in the first page of the Bible, it talks about the Garden of Eden. Now, I'm I'm not really a Christian in some ways. In some ways, I am. Like I think in from what I've learned from it when I was growing up and stuff. Um, we had Christianity in school to some degree. We listened to the stories. We got taught that stuff. To some degree, I do think a lot of those principles and stories have had a deep impact on me. But I don't necessarily fully practice the religion, but I appreciate it. But to me, the Bible is an interesting book, not just of religion or spirituality, but um, symbology, obviously stories, history to some degree, human nature, societies, how societies grew and developed, how they fell apart, rules for keeping society together, rules for living your life, all sorts of things that are kind of interesting are contained in the Bible in some way or other. Sometimes you have to kind of interpret and all that kind of stuff. But there's a part, the thing that I find really interesting is the whole Garden of Eden story, and the idea that humans once lived in a paradise, in a state of nature with other animals, in a kind of paradise environment, and then we fell from there was the fall of man, where we fell out of the state of nature, fell out of Eden, and became part of the and created like the human world in a sense. And there's this part of the Bible that's very interesting in that in Genesis. It's Genesis 3:16, and it says, "To the woman he said, I will greatly increase your pains in childbearing. With pain you will give birth to children. Your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you." So I don't know exactly what the last two lines mean, but I will greatly increase your pains in childbearing. Your pain With pain you will give birth to children. And what's interesting about that is it seems to suggest that in the Garden of Eden, women did not experience pain in childbirth. And that matches up for me with the idea that potentially on a fruitarian raw vegan diet, that women will not experience as much pain, or maybe not any pain in some cases during childbirth. Now that might not be the case always. It might be, especially if as a woman gets older, it might always be a risk or a painful experience. I don't know for sure. I don't know enough about it, but that is to me quite an interesting um, link there, because from my impression, I don't know if animals go through pain in childbirth the way that human females do. I don't know for sure. I don't. It seems like it's an easier experience for them, but obviously I don't know. Um, so that's very, to me, that is a very interesting thing, and it points to the fact that what I'm starting to learn from these experiences and testimonials is that there's a lot of women for whom, and there's the other interesting thing that this is brought up by is the fact that there's a film that we were watching for the group, which was called The Greatest Adventure, and The Greatest Adventure is a natural hygiene film from probably the 1950s. It's an old film. It's on YouTube. It's worth a watch. Very nice historical piece, and it shows people living essentially a very high raw plant-based diet, vegan back then, and reversing illnesses and all the same things that people can do with it now, of course. But a big focus of the film was infertility. And it's funny to me because I've not heard now so many people talk about they were infertile and they went to the raw vegan diet. I've not heard that so much. But back then, it was maybe more of a thing because maybe people were more interested in having children back then. So there was couple after couple after couple in that film talking about having being infertile and then being able to have children, and some of them quite later in years. So we were talking about that. So it's something we don't talk about a lot, but the raw vegan diet seems to be excellent for fertility and excellent for a much better experience in pregnancy. And it's funny because in reality, what women are going to be scared about having a pregnancy and a raw vegan diet. They're going to think, no, I need protein, I need milk, I need all this stuff. And it's really the complete opposite. Now, you need to do the raw vegan diet correctly, of course, and eat enough and all that stuff. But this is really good news, I think, for people. This is another great experience people have with the raw vegan diet and lifestyle. And it seems improvement in fertility and improvement in pregnancy and post-pregnancy with recovery, and also with breastfeeding. And they were mentioning, the ladies, that they didn't really have the same problems with breastfeeding that some women do. A lot of women struggle with producing milk, and they end up like taking supplements, drinking milk, having more meat or whatever, and it doesn't work. What works is more fruit and less of that other stuff, and getting rid of the milk and all that stuff. So it's very interesting. And the great thing is, if you can get children started, the thing is, when children go into the teenage years and they're around their friends and they become adults, they're probably going to go away and do their own thing and experiment with other things, unfortunately. But really, they can have a great childhood, very healthy start to their life, at least, if they're started on raw, and they won't develop the same addictive habits for other foods and stuff. It would be great to see people that continue raw for life. I don't know if many kids, the kids that are brought up raw, do it often. I think some of them have, but a lot of them end up going away to college, leaving home, going to school, going with friends, and they start experimenting with the other foods that their friends have. So that's happened a bunch of times. So I think that's very interesting, all that stuff. And we have this perception in society that people are getting less fertile, sperm counts are going down, all that stuff, hormones, testosterone is going down. We have all these big fear ideas that people have, and people might relate it to there's something in the tap water, there's something in the sun, there's stuff coming down from the sky, there's all of this, chemicals in the food. Most of that is related to people being overweight and sick. Like, men having low testosterone is overweight, sick, you know, not exercising, not active. Like that's where that comes from. It's not well people, and there's lots more not well people now. So of course sperm counts are low, and testosterone is lower, and whatever else. That's not something that most of you need to worry about, who are probably on a healthier path. But reducing, losing the weight, excess weight, is a good thing to do. What was I going to say? And we had another discussion last night about this, the infertility thing. I was watching some history documentary of Scotland, and something that happened in the history of succession between kings and queens and all that is so many of the kings and queens couldn't produce an heir, couldn't produce children, or didn't produce children, or they produced children that died very young. And it just goes to show that potentially they had the bad diet back then. The kings and queens were the ones that had that terrible diet, that had the ability to eat meat and milk and butter and cheese and sugar every day. I don't know if they had sugar so much going back, but but they would have had all that bad stuff. And so it makes total sense that they would have been the ones that would have suffered from infertility, um, which is kind of sad, but it's inevitable, right? And now more people are suffering from infertility, and that's uh, probably because of the bad diet, and hugely. Because if you've got millions of years of successful parents behind you, the chance of you being infertile is kind of small. But you definitely decrease your chance by being unhealthy. You know, so there's obviously some people that will always be infertile regardless of what they do. Some people are born with an extra chromosome or different things like that, so they don't have the ability to be fertile. But if it's to do with your health, then you can improve your health by going back to the habits that create health, the habits that are in alignment with the creation of health in the human body, which means a fruitarian raw vegan diet. And that's what we suggest in this channel. So if you want some more information, you can join us at Fruity Fridays on Friday nights. You can go to fruitfest.co.uk and sign up for the newsletter. I'll put some links down below for my book, which you should get for sure, and maybe some information about the festival coming up. But thank you for watching today. Feel free to leave your ideas, comments below, and subscribe to the channel, and feel free to share the video. Thank you very much.